If you're thinking about updating your website, probably one of the big things you're going to be wondering is what should this cost and what's the price going to be? So in this video, we're going to talk about what are some of those key drivers that influence what a website refresh costs and how can you manage those different aspects to make sure your website updates fit into your budget. Now let's get right to it. If you're thinking about refreshing your website, you're probably wondering about the cost. What is this investment going to be to refresh and update your website? Now to cut to the chase, it's a complicated question and there are a lot of drivers that go into what makes a website refresh cost what it does. Really candidly, to get to the punchline, on the very low end, you could find an option under $1,000, but really you're going to want to plan on spending a couple grand for a good website. For something really custom, really high-end, and especially for a big website, you're talking thousands, if not several tens of thousands of dollars. And granted, probably if you're a Fortune 500 company, you're going to be spending a lot of money working with a big national agency. But let's dig a little deeper though and really talk about what are those key drivers, what are things you can manage or control to help keep costs in a range where you're really comfortable with it as well. And of course, one caveat to keep in mind is one factor that drives website costs is how much work are you looking to have an agency or freelancer do for you. So of course, the more they're doing for you versus what you're doing yourself, the higher the price will probably be. And keep in mind, no matter what, refreshing a website is really a collaborative process. You've got to work together. With a talented developer, you're going to have a partner who knows how to build a site, design a site, test a site, really do their job really well. But at the end of the day, no one's going to know your business as well as you do, so you've still got to be involved to some certain degree as well. But the more you can take on, the more you can do yourself, the better that's going to help manage costs as well. So with that said, let's really dig into what the different factors are that are going to drive the cost for your website refresh. So first off, number one of the biggest drivers that's going to influence the cost of your website refresh is how big is your website. That is, how many pages are there. So for example, if you've got a website where it's going to be one page where it's kind of a hero section or attention grabber up top, then below that maybe some information about yourself or your business, then what products, maybe some testimonials, and then a contact form, that's really straightforward. And it's a lot smaller than compared to a site with 10 pages or 20 pages or 100 pages, for example, because each one of those pages needs to be both designed, built, hooked up, optimized, tested, so on and so forth. So if you've got a big website, just plan on having the cost be more than if you have a simple one-page website. Now, a tip is how to manage that cost, how to keep costs low, for example, is one thing that we do a lot at Buddy is we have a lot of clients from time to time where their website's outdated, and with that, it can get a little bit bloated. That means there's extra pages where really, with a little bit of work on the content writing, you can consolidate that and really, there might be unnecessary pages that go into specific detail that maybe the website would work just as fine with a one-page layout or a three-page layout or things like that. The balance there, of course, is balancing cost and scope and having a really straightforward website while balancing that with SEO or search engine optimization. Because when you play the game of SEO and trying to get your website found on Google or other search engines, you do want to have customized content where you have landing pages that use certain keywords so Google can find them and those sorts of things as well. But in any case, to get to cost, really the biggest driver out of the gate is how big your website is. So let's talk about some other factors too that go into the cost beyond just the size of the website. Now, number two, along with the size of your website, one of the biggest drivers of cost is complexity. That is, what features, what functionality do you have for your website? The more complex the website, of course, the more time, more effort, more expertise it's going to take to maintain or refresh that, and therefore the cost will go up. So on the low end or more basic end, a lot of companies use what's called a brochure style website. And basically it's an online brochure where you're using text, photos, other imagery, maybe some videos to just inform customers about your business, about your products. And then the call to action usually is something pretty simple, like a contact form or things like that. However, if you're going to add more technology like e-commerce, for example, whether you're selling one product, a dozen products, or 100 products, that adds complexity because you're going to want to set up a store, update that, update product listings. Those are all factors that if you're doing a refresh, the developer and designer will need to take into consideration, and those sorts of things will drive up costs as well. So the more products you have in an online store, the higher the price will be. If you have other special features like subscription products, other different ways to ship, coupons, things like that, those are all features that are probably going to drive the cost up a little bit as far as refreshing your website. Beyond that, though, there are other things to keep in mind, like if you have a database. A lot of times we'll do healthcare projects with clients, and they might have a patient database that needs to be updated. So those are factors. If you have a developer updating those sort of things, those all can drive costs as well. So the next thing that's going to really influence cost is design. Now, if you're looking for a really basic website, one approach that's really common, especially with the very lowest price developers and agencies and freelancers, is finding an off-the-shelf template or theme or layout that you can then take your own content like text, copy and paste it into that template, your photos, things like that, and make it your own. That's usually the most common approach for having a very, very budget-friendly, low-cost website, and that's totally fine. More commonly, though, what we see is that if a business or an individual or a brand is looking to refresh their website, usually it's because things are going well and they want to really differentiate their business as being a leader in the industry. So if you are a more established business and you're looking to refresh and update your website, I'm going to guess that more than likely you want something really nice. It's going to reflect your brand. It's going to reflect really well upon your business. So you probably will want something a little more custom than an off-the-shelf website that's going to look like everybody else's. That said, that does involve a little bit more time, a little bit more effort, and therefore a little more cost to get a really nice design that's custom built, that really reflects your business and helps differentiate you versus all your competitors out there as well. So those things might include both the website design itself, but if you also need or want any custom illustrations or graphics or videos or things like that, those extra things can drive costs as well. Fortunately, there are a lot of online repositories that developers and designers use that can grab stock images. I don't necessarily mean the corny staged stock photos, but really nice ones. You can find those as well and help reduce cost versus having really custom made from scratch illustrations or graphics or things like that. But the amount of design effort required to really customize your site and the assets or images or videos within is going to drive costs quite a bit as well. So next up, the fourth thing that's really going to influence price and the cost for a website refresh is the content itself. So on one hand, if you've got an existing website you're looking to refresh, you can probably pull a lot of the text content from your existing site and repurpose that for the new version of your website. Now, one thing that will influence cost, of course, is if you are going to be the person that rewrites that text, or if on the other side you're going to look for your developer or designer team to do that for you. There are pros and cons both ways depending on how complex your industry is. Maybe there are certain things where it's not really feasible to rely on a developer to know the really nitty-gritty details like you do. But on the other side of things, there can be value in working together and having your design and development team do the writing with you or for you, because they can help with keyword research, SEO optimization, and just kind of being an outside set of eyes of folks that aren't as in the weeds as you are to help make sure that everything you're talking about on your website makes a lot of sense for someone that's reading it the first time as well. So depending on how much you want to lean on your development team for keyword research, SEO, and content writing, those are going to influence costs as well. And granted, of course, the price tag for that service is going to depend on how many pages that team's writing. So if you are looking for content writing help on a one-page website, that's going to be a lot lower price than looking for content writing on a 100-page website, for example. Last, one of the final key drivers that's going to influence the cost of a website refresh are hosting and maintenance. So hosting is a service that's actually storing your online website files and pulling those up for visitors when they go to your website. So there are some developers out there that will offer to not just revamp your website for you, but they'll offer hosting as well. Now, a lot of times what that means, and granted, I probably am admittedly a bit of a cynical person here, my own take is there's no real reason or benefit, unless you want to be super hands-off, to go through your developer for hosting. There are plenty of really good website hosting providers out there online where you can very easily set up an account, run your credit card, and then give access to that hosting to your developer. A lot of times, a reason a developer might, and again, this is where the cynical part comes in, might want to help offer you hosting directly is because it puts them in a spot of a middleman. You're kind of then tied into that developer because they host your files. There's no need for that. Usually that adds cost because they're taking a commission or a fee or marking up that hosting cost, and then two, it locks you in with that developer as well. So my own advice to keep costs low especially is just go through a hosting provider directly. We recommend WP Engine a lot, but there are lots of hosting providers out there. And then second is maintenance plans as well. So once your website's built, you're going to need to maintain it. It doesn't necessarily need to be this big scary thing. If you use a content management system like WordPress, maintaining your website is super easy. You should make sure your web developer educates you and gives you some training on how to update text when you want to, update photos, do basic maintenance like security checks, doing speed tests, things like that. If your developer is proposing a maintenance plan, be really clear on what the parameters of that is, what the cost is going to be, how many hours of work per month or per billing cycle there is too. That's one of those things that is a great way, and again, this is where I'm a little cynical, to have recurring revenue if you're a developer by having clients locked into a maintenance contract. Just be really clear on what actually needs to be done, what's the work they're actually doing every month, and then what are you paying for that, and is it worthwhile as well. So there you have it. A couple different things that are really going to influence what a website refresh costs. Now granted, admittedly, in this video we didn't talk a lot about actual numbers, and that's because that's really going to vary so much depending on the things we discussed. How big your website is, bells and whistles, design elements, what type of agency you're talking with, all those sorts of things. But keep in mind though, if you're investing in a website refresh, you want to do it once and you want to do it right. So you want to make sure when the job is done, you've hopefully had a stress-free experience and you're really, really excited and proud of how your refreshed website looks, and that's going to last you for a couple of years as well. So I hope this has been helpful, and of course, if we can answer any questions or elaborate or help with any pricing questions you might have, feel free to reach out and get in touch. If you'd like to learn more about our team, you can visit our website at www.buddywdd.com. And if you'd like to get in touch, you can just click on the button in the upper right-hand corner, answer a few basic questions, and we will follow up with you as soon as possible. So as always, hope this has been helpful. Thanks for watching, and talk to you again soon.